Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the Defense Health Agency's Medical Q-Coded Support and Services webinar. My name is Muge Carsley, and I've got my colleague Ab Vand with us. We're going to present to you the project itself, the scoring system, optimization, and compliance. Just a few administrative notes before we get started. The webinar is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. We are going to hold Q&A sessions at the end. During the webinar, feel free to start sending in your questions by the chat system, which is to the right of your window, and we will address them at the end. Also, you can download this presentation by clicking on the link that says File on the right-hand side of the panel of your window. Just a little bit about who we are. We've been in business for more than 10 years. We have a very high revenue where we have a growth in revenue and also an increase in IDIQ and GWAC wins where we've been supporting a lot of customers. Our win rates on the GWACs and other contracts are 82%. In the past 3 years. We only take on jobs when we establish with our clients that they have a good chance of winning it. We do bring in quite a bit of experience and experienced proposal managers and writers to support all of your contracts and all the federal industries and verticals to support you. In 2021, we did have 143 wins on many multi-million-dollar proposals. Over the past successful proposals of us doing it in more than a decade, we've had over $12 billion worth of contracts. We support a lot of government procurements, government contracts. We do a lot of Department of Defense and combatant command proposals. We do proposals for the Department of Defense components and a slew of other federal agencies that we support with our clients. We bring in, as mentioned before, quite a bit of experience on doing self-scoring type projects. Some of our success stories on the screen, as you can see, we have at least 12 wins on the OASIS Unrestricted and 41 on the Small Business Set-Asides. We've got 18 wins on the ASTRO, Emerging and Large, and 29 on the Small Business GWACs. We have a win on the HCATs and for unrestricted and 8 wins on the small business set aside. We've got 6 wins on Alliance. As you can see, we really do have an average win rate of 96% on all of our self-scoring proposals. And we do self-scoring training for APMP chapters and other clients. Our range of clients range from small business companies. We've also helped them partner with stronger companies. To the extent we do support a lot of large defense contractors on the market. Some, top 10 are our customers. And we are experts in maximizing score and insurance compliance and ensuring compliance. Just to give you an outline of our webinar, what we're going to go through, we're going to go a little bit about our self-scoring systems. We're going to do a quick review on the MQS2 101 contract. We're going to talk about the proposal structure and award basis. We're going to review the scoring system, score optimization, and how to ensure compliance. And then we're going to go right to the Q&As. Now we're doing the self-scoring proposal. So on these contracts, essentially, there's no writing involved. We require or request that you do first score yourself, provide documentation, usually, past performance contract documents, proving that the scoring is justified. As a bidder, you want to assess yourself based on the requirements and the rules that are put out in the RFP in the Section L, Section M. You want to substantiate your claims by providing the needed documents. In the proper way with the proper highlighting and the codes and acronyms that you need to put in. A lot of these are administrative documents, as mentioned, no technical, no experience, no past performance or resume volumes are needed to be written or anything like that. When the government does get your proposals, first thing they're gonna do is review for compliance, and they're gonna immediately remove all the non-compliant ones. As you know, these are very competitive, so being compliant is a big thing. They're gonna check all the substantiations, all the documents that you provided as verification to substantiate the claim and the score. And they're going to award they're going to give award to those companies who are going to score over the minimum threshold, the highest based on the number of finite number of companies that are to be awarded. I'm sorry. The next section that we're going to be talking about is the medical Q-coded support and services for next generation contract. Just a little review, as we mentioned, it is a DHA, Defense Health Agency contract. That's a multiple award IDIQ. Estimated ceiling value is $44 billion. They're looking at about 50 awards for a small business solicitation, 10 for the of the AORs, and 25 awards for unrestricted, so 5 per AOR. The RFP numbers are right there. There are 2 separate ones, one for small business, one for unrestricted. Right now it's in full RFP mode. The latest modification was awarded on January 6th. Due date is on March 31. The questions due date is closed at this time. Just some of the quick services. They've got physician services, dental services, and ancillary services, which is, what the contract workers who deliver patient treatments, audiology, clinical, etc. There's nursing services, also part of the requirements, and medical support services. Some of the areas of responsibility are the Northeast region, which is the capital region, Virginia, New Jersey, New England, upstate New York, West Point, etc. There's Southeastern, that's going to include Central, North, and South Carolina, the North Carolina coast, Jacksonville, Low Country, Augusta, Southwest Georgia, etc. Then we have the southern regions. That's going to include Central Oklahoma, Central Louisiana, Texas, Coastal Mississippi, Corpus Christi, the Florida Panhandle, Little Rock, San Antonio. The central regions include Central Kentucky, Colorado, El Paso, Great Lakes, Ozarks, Riley, Southwestern Kentucky. And the western region is going to include California, Desert, Los Angeles, Sacramento, San Diego, Puget Sound, Washington State, Las Vegas, Nevada, Hawaii, and Alaska. Some of these task orders are going to involve, the first type is the type 1 configuration, which is going to be the placement of qualified contract workers. Type 2 configuration is full service operational support, where the contractor is going to independently be required to perform the scope of operations. And you're going to need to develop a SAL as a part of your technical response for this. Now moving on to the proposal structure and award basis. We've got several volumes. The first one is administration. Administration is going to involve everything, obviously, from the table of contents, the signed SF 1449s and amendments. It's going to include the complete CTA, so all of your contractor team organizational documents, a lot of your certifications, representations, the full-blown signed CTA agreements, small business participation, and commitment for unrestricted and small businesses, the JV representations for small business, and they also do want a glossary of abbreviations and acronyms. Volume 2 is going to be the technical capability. That's where we're going to put in the self-scoring technical capability worksheet. It's going to involve the scope, the labor segment supporting that documentation, all broken out in tabs, as you can see, from the physician services, the dental, the ancillary, nursing, and medical support services. Then tab 3 is going to be the type 2 configuration and support documentation. We're going to need to provide the magnitude supporting documentations, the letter line of credit supporting documentations, and the complexity supporting documentations for the Northeastern, Southeastern, Southern, Central, and Western. Tab 7 is going to be the market-based experience support documentation. Tab 8 is the technology enablers supporting documentation. Tab 9 is the organization certification supporting documentation. Tab 9 is the IDIQ contract experience supporting documentation. Tab 11 is the FFP contract experience supporting documentation. And tab 12 is the prime offers experience supporting documentation. Volume 3 is all about past performance. There is a database, past performance information tool to be used. It's going to cover Northeastern AORs, so references 1 through 5, and all the way down to Southeastern, Southern, Central, Western. All of those references 1 through 5 are to be included in Volume 3. And they also want an organizational change history for tab 7. Did you have a management structure change? Is your company still the same? All of that information. Was it acquired? It goes into that document. The award process, as we also mentioned a little bit earlier, it's all about responsiveness. Step 1, proposal responsiveness. This is when the government will put aside all non-compliant proposals in the form and in content. Step 2 would be the technical capability. For unrestricted, DHA is going to pick up the top 5 companies based on their score for unrestricted, and for small business, the top 10 companies based on their score. Step 3 is the past performance. DHA reviews the 5 supplied recent and relevant past performance references. Note that it's 5 per AOR that you are going after. And to be awarded, you must be one of the top 10 small business or the top 5 for unrestricted on self-scoring for that AOR. And you must have a satisfactory performance confidence rating. So if you're, you have in your CPARs, you want to make sure everything or PPQs has to be satisfactory or above very good or exceptional. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ab, who is going to review the scoring system with you and beyond.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Muge. I want to convey one major message through this webinar. If you want to win, focus on compliance. We are going to go through the scoring system. We're going to go through maximizing your score and compliance. But the major theme that if you're going to leave at the end of this webinar is to focus on your compliance. And I hope I will be able to show you why. These self-scoring proposals are a different breed of proposal. If you try to treat them as a standard proposal where you read sections L and M and prepare your compliance matrix and then go to work, you're going to go down the wrong path. So you first need to realize that self-scoring proposals, which it seems that the feds are using more and more actually, these types of submission require a totally different type of proposal preparation, different rules, different methodologies. And even though they spell out volumes and things like that, but you really need to understand that this is a different beast that you have to fight for. So that's why compliance is the most important issue here, and we'll touch on this throughout the webinar. Now, let's talk a little bit about the overall score. So the maximum score for this solicitation is something between 8,125 to 8,475, depending on the AOR. And everything is essentially the same except for complexity, I'll get to that. That's the factor that is changing the score between the different AORs, and that complexity comes directly from AOR. Now, there are 11 factors that you see are listed here. These 11 factors are what are making the score. And we'll delve into the most important one, which is the first one, scope. Scope covers about 50 to 52% of the total score. Based on the AOR, it's a little bit more or less, but essentially 50% to 52% of the total score comes from scope. I think this might make it more clear where scope stands compared to the other factors that will give you your points. So as I said, scope gives you about 50%, a little bit more of your score. And you can see that there are other factors, how small they are compared to scope. So what we're going to do is to see what constitutes scope. It is important to understand that because also this is a factor that comes in when you consider partnering, and we're going to touch on partnering. We have a few slides to discuss how you can actually use partnering in your win strategy. But I wanted you to understand the value of scope here and where, in fact, you should focus to get and to maximize your score. Okay, so this is the table that will show you the maximum score that you can get for each factor under each AOR. If you, as Muge said at the beginning of the webinar, you can download this presentation later on and actually look at these numbers in more detail, but you will find out that the numbers are essentially all equal for all AORs, except for complexity. And complexity is directly related to the AOR. So other than that, all the other numbers are the same throughout the AORs. So you can see that the total number is essentially 8,265, except for southeastern market AOR, which is about 100 less, and the central market AOR, which is about 210 more. So, but they're approximately the same. And you can see here that the other factors are essentially anything between 200 to 600 points overall, whereas scope, you can see, is much larger. Now, we're going to also see and delve into the sub-factors under scope as well. And these are the sub-factors under scale. So I did mention that scale gives about 50% of the score. Now, these 5 areas constitute the parts that make up the score for scale. So you can see the physician labor segment, the nursing labor segment, ancillary dental services, and then medical support services. These are the different labor segments. And overall, they'll give you the total, which is 50% of the total score. And here you can see again that physician labor segment and nursing labor segment are the 2 largest. So perhaps within scale, you should also concentrate here and try to get this as high as possible, or physician, nursing, and ancillary perhaps. But I just wanted you to understand how they stand compared to each other and compared to the other point factors. Okay, now this table shows you the minimum contracts and as well as the maximum contracts that you can provide to maximize your score. Under the minimum number of claimed items, that essentially means that to make it easier, let's consider when it says items contracts. So you need to provide 2 contracts for physicians at least. You might provide more, but not more than 7. So minimum is 2, maximum is 7, and with 7 you will be able to get the maximum score that you can get. But if you provide less than 2, then it's not acceptable, and your submission is not acceptable. So you can see the numbers change depending on the different labor categories. So nursing is 3 minimum and 8 maximum. Ancillary 3 minimum, 9 maximum. Dental is 2 minimum, 5 maximum. And then medical support services is 2. It can be either common positions or difficult to fill positions either. And then maximum is 7. There is a constraint also, and this constraint I will delve into more details when we discuss partnership. But this constraint tells us how many of these contracts must come from the prime itself. For each area, if you look, for example, under nursing services, you'll see that it says 2 supporting documents must be from the prime offerer. So for all of them, there is a minimum that the prime offerer must provide, but there is also an overarching constraint, which is written at the top, saying prime offerer shall provide supporting documentation for the minimum number of claimed items in at least 3 out of the 5 labor segments. So not only do the prime have to comply with the minimum requirement per each of these labor categories, like say nursing, you have to provide 2, but overall, it has to, out of the 5, it has to abide to 3 of them and provide the minimums that has been written under the column minimum number of claimed items. So there are 2 constraints working on the prime, and you should be aware of that. So make sure that when you're preparing your proposal, you abide with that. Otherwise, this is one of those places that you're non-compliant and they'll put you aside. So 2 constraints on the prime. First constraint is per labor category, which is written under the constraints, rows 2, 3, 4, and 5. But row 1 under constraints, opposite physician services, that's a constraint that covers the overall submission process. And here it says that out of the 5 different labor categories, the prime must provide the minimum number of claimed items under 3 of them. So remember that. Okay, now moving on, I want to touch on the partnering side of this solicitation, because this is very important, how you use partnering and what the limitations are. So again, compliance is important here. At the same time, you want to use it to maximize your score. So you can use contracts from your partners, and I'll explain in the next point what partners are. But your partners' projects can be used in scale and in complexity factors only, and not on the other factors. So don't make a mistake of using your partner's projects for the other factors like magnitude or letter of credit. All of that must come from the prime. You can use the contracts from your partners only in the scale and complexity factors. So remember that. But as you remember, scale factor provides 50% of the total score, so it's not a bad issue. I mean, it's a multiplier, so you can use it there. Now, when we say partner, what do we mean? Partners means teaming partners, JV members, and prime sub relationships. And these subs meaning that more than 25% of the work, so major subcontractors. So you can use, if you have this relationship with them and you have to provide DHA with the proposal, a signed CTA agreement, a signed agreement with your partners, but essentially you have 3 types of relationship that you can create. Teaming partners, JV members, if you have a JV, or prime subcontractor relationship. As a rule, whether it's a subcontractor, teaming partner, or a JV member, you cannot Remember this, you cannot have more than one offer submitted in response to the medical Q-coded acquisition. So you can't be part of a team member and then submit a proposal yourself, just one. So either you're a part of a team or you're a prime, just one submission. And the same stands, even if you don't have a team, you cannot participate in both tracks of small business and unrestricted. You have to select whether you want to go for unrestricted or for small business. So that's something to consider. And then the government says that it's, as a prime, it's your responsibility to make sure that your partners, subcontractors, and JV members are not teaming with any other company. If the government finds out that there are two submissions, they're going to disqualify both. So assuming that, say, one of your subcontractors is teaming with another company, you will be disqualified, they will be disqualified, the other prime. So make sure that your partners do not participate with other teams. Now, if you're submitting as a JV, you can use the technical capability and past performance supporting documents from any of the JV members. But this is important. If one of your subs is a JV, you cannot use the other members, that JV's other member subcontracts. So assuming that you are a JV yourself, you can use either member's projects. There's no problem there. Now assume that you have a subcontractor in your teaming arrangement that is a JV itself. Then you cannot use the members of that JV contracts independently. You can only use projects done by that JV as a whole. So that's something to consider. Now let's go back to that minimum requirements for the contracts in scale. I want to touch base again here on the partnership issue. Remember that when you're working with partners, you have to remember how many contracts you as the prime must provide. So, for example, in nursing services, it says minimum is 3, and then 2 must come from you. So here you have to remember that when you're partnering, 2 of the contracts must come from you. So if you don't have 2, you actually cannot participate in that nursing services. So even if even if your partner has 9 of these that have nursing services labor categories, but you have 1 instead of 2, essentially you cannot participate in that. So when deciding to work with your partners, when selecting your partners, you first have to take a look at your own capability regarding each of these labor categories to make sure that you have the minimums that are required, and then try to bring in partners for that labor category. So I wanted to make sure that you understand this part of it, so that you don't go, looking for partners and bringing them in when at the end of the day you cannot actually get any scores because you don't have the minimums as the prime. So this is something that you should consider when you're partnering with other companies. And I have put them in red here, so you can actually, when you look at the slides later on, if you have time, you can see what the minimums are to make sure that you abide with these requirements. Okay, so up to now, we've discussed the requirements, but let's see what you gain, what you really gain from partnering. There are 2 major areas that you can gain, and I hope I can actually shed some light on it. Obviously, in the scale factor, you can use partners to boost your points as much as you can. So, because as I have repeatedly said, the scale factor constitutes 50% of the total score. So the more you can bring in partners and get more points on it, the better. And there, inside the scale factor, physicians and nursing labor categories, labor segments, will give you the highest score. So if you're low there, try to bring in as many partners as you can to increase your score under physicians and nursing, and after that, ancillary. And then I have mentioned here again, make sure that you abide to the requirements for the minimum contribution of the prime, which we just covered in the previous slide. I will not go over it again. Now, another area that you can use partners extensively, and I think it would be very prudent to consider it, is to reach out for different AORs. Now, there are obviously minimums there. For example, if you want to go after an AOR, first of all, you need to have 2 contracts as the prime for that particular AOR. But and also in terms of the past performance for that AOR, you need to present 5 past performances in volume 3, one of which must be from the prime. So 4 of them can come from your partners. And in besides the 2 contracts that you have to provide as the prime, all the others can come from your partners. Not only will you get your score for complexity higher, but also you can actually go after that AOR as well. For example, many companies might be very strong in some of the AORs, but not as strong in others. Say you have worked in the eastern part of the nation, but you haven't worked in the central part, or you've just got 2 contracts, 2 small contracts, in fact. Here, when you bring in a partner in the central area, say a central AOR, and use their contracts, then you can actually be awarded for the central area as well. And this opens up a new, window for your company. So primes should all consider bringing in as many partners as they can to open up different AORs that they are weak at. So this is what I wanted to reach you for. To reiterate what I said, partnering can help you in the scale factor, which constitutes 50% of the total score. It can also help you in the complexity factor, but more importantly, and related to complexity, is the fact that you can actually open up AORs that you are weak at and actually be awarded, perhaps, for that AOR, and open up new business there. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you need to provide your CTA agreement. It should be well written. The government is going to look for the rights and responsibilities for you to actually spell out the rights and responsibilities of each partner, and especially the managing partner. So try to spell out very concisely, first of all, what the responsibilities of the managing partner is, and then the rest of the partners. You must also provide a summary narrative that explains what each partner will do in regards to the performance of the contract if you're awarded. So that should also go along with the CTA agreement. So to sum up, I would say that you use as many partners as is logistically possible to boost your score. So this is the motto for partnering. Use as many partners as is logistically possible. I'm saying logistically because I understand that coming to agreements with partners is obviously difficult. You only have 2 months, but at the end of the day, you want to win. So you should go after all possible avenues to actually increase and boost your score, because your winning equals to boosting your score and getting a higher score, and being in the first 5 if you're an unrestricted company, large company, or first 10 if you're a small business in that particular AOR. So you should take all steps possible to do that, and the best, because the rest is already done, it's the projects that you've done. The best thing you can do to boost your score is to bring in as many partners as you can to increase your score. Okay, now let's go into a little bit about score optimization. How do we ensure that we can actually optimize the score? When I say optimize, I mean use the maximum score that we should be able to prove and is realistically possible to actually prove that we do deserve those points. So here are the points that I've written. Read the RFP and modifications carefully and fully understand them. And when I say RFP and modifications, I don't mean L&M. That's the standard way of, most proposal managers do. I don't mean that at all. A lot of information is spread out in different forms, especially the scoring matrix, the scoring sheet has a lot of information, has a lot of limitations that I have mentioned here in this slide. The information base is based from those forms and is not in the L&M sections of the RFP. So make sure that all the contract documents are read, or solicitation documents are read carefully, and you fully understand them. Then concentrate on maximizing the score on the scale factor. I think you already, I've said it too many times perhaps, is more than 50% of the score. Maximize the use of partners, as many as is logistically possible, and use them to boost your scale factor score and AOR, as I mentioned. If you're considerably short on the non-scale factors that are prime only points, remember that you can't use partners for that, then you might consider using the remaining time, the 2 months that remains, to form a JV with another company, if logistically possible. Again, I say, because there's a lot of administrative and business decisions to be made. But if you can do that, if you can form a JV, then you can use the points, the non-scale points that the other JV member can bring to the table to actually increase your overall points. Finally, outsource the proposal preparation reviews, if you have, especially if you haven't done this before, so that professional people can go through your material and maximize your score. Okay, so these are score optimization, and I want to now touch on compliance itself and say a few words on that. Okay. Finding non-compliance with your submission is the government's first line of defense. They're going to get a lot of submissions, and they're not going to look at your numbers. You might have the best score in the world. If you're non-compliant, and when I say non-compliant, I mean in form, the format of your submission, and in content. In content, I mean not understanding the RFP properly, not substantiating it properly, things like that. Either way, you're going to be put aside. So triple check to ensure your submission is fully compliant. Some of the common compliance issues that I've seen, I've done about 140 something proposals myself, and self-scoring proposals. And during this time, these few years, I've seen major large companies making such mistakes because it is a new system, and some of the best proposal managers and capture managers, this is new to them. So it's understandable that they're going to make mistakes. That's why this is a teamwork. Don't do it by one person only. Now, some of these common compliance issues, misunderstanding the requirements and their consequence, will include overscoring yourself, and sometimes the other way around, not giving yourself a score that you really deserve, and that is from not really fully understanding the requirements. Next, misunderstanding the partnering requirements and not adhering to the limitations set on the prime and partners participation, which we discussed. You need to make sure this issue is fully abided to those minimums that they have set with regards to the prime, and the fact that you can't use partners for any of the factors except scale and complexity. Next issue, which is usually very, very prevalent, is incomplete substantiation. In other words, not providing the proper documents, the supporting documents to prove the points that you have given to yourself. And finally, incorrect or incomplete compliance in form to the requirements, including how to name the documents, what documents to provide, how to submit them, and all different things that come with regards to form and format of your submission. And what should we do to prevent that? Here's some experience that we have gathered. Read the RFP and all its modifications thoroughly, multiple times. And again, as I said, when I say RFP, I mean all the RFP documents, all the forms, all the small fonts, text written everywhere. Create a reliable compliance checklist. This is essential, and I'm going to show you one after this slide. It is really important to create a very good compliance checklist, audit checklist, and do multiple audits. Do at least 2 rounds of compliance checks when you're finished with the scoring. So it's really important to do it multiple times to make sure there are no compliance issues. Attention to detail is vital. Check every single item per the RFP sections L and M, and plus, I should mention here, plus all the forms and everything, multiple times to ensure they are compliant in form and in content. Discuss compliance with your team. So don't do it as, this is not a solo project. You need to have a team. You need at least 1 or 2 people to, act as a devil's advocate and try to question everything. This is really useful at most times. Always assume that you've missed something. Do an independent audit of each document that is to be submitted, both in form and in content. And finally, utilize a third party to review your scoring and your proposal documents to have another set of eyes check your work. This is vital, and this isn't really, I'm trying to be honest, this is not a sales pitch. I've seen so many mistakes done by great major proposal managers. You just need people outside your sphere of influence to come and check your system. So even if you have them in your organization, use them. If you don't have them, use a third party to actually come and do it. And I'm talking from experience of doing so many projects here. Okay, before I say how we can help, let me share my screen, and I want to show you the checklist that we use in our company. So perhaps you can get some sort of an idea of what is needed. 1 minute, please. Okay, I hope you can see this checklist. We use Excel. Of course, you can use any software that you're comfortable with. Each row here is one of the submissions. And there are 5 areas. The green one is the first one. It says ready. It might be a little small. I'll try to enlarge it and see if it helps. So you can see the first few columns give the title of the section and the name as required by the contract, the solicitation. And then we go into 5 columns, starting with that one, which is called ready. First review, second review, submit, when we submit, and then final, which means after submission, we do another check. Now, the coloring, when it's green, it means that it's okay. When it's orange, at least this is the coloring we're using. Obviously, you can use your own coloring scheme. Orange means that there is something, there's a problem there you have to resolve. So, for example, on this one, let me make it a little bit smaller. You can see the other sides too. Here, on this one, for example, some of these are orange after the first review, and some of them are green after the first review. The green ones means that everything is okay. The orange ones means that there's something, the task that needs to be rechecked, corrected, and resubmitted. Gray means that this client that we are working for doesn't have a submission under that area. So, for example, here we are talking about tab 2A, which is the physician services, and it's divided into the different types of physicians that are used. Each row is one of those types of physicians, whether our client does have them or not. Those black boxes are the contract documents that I have redacted, so the contract document is not seen here, and the name of, I have changed the name of the client as well as YYY Solutions. But other than that, this is a real checklist that we fill out. Now, to the right, and I will make it larger again so you can see. To the right, we have mentioned what needs to be checked for each item. So, for example, let me come to this one here. You can see that it's all green, but there are 8 points that have to be checked, and there's a green OK in front of them. If it's not OK, when we check it, when we review and audit it, then we write what the problem is. The good thing about it is that the reviewer knows what to check for. And since this is done in a committee sort of a process, all the items that need to be checked are written there to make sure that nothing is missing. So if I scroll down, we will come to, for example, this project. You can see it's red. Red means that the project needs to be changed. And item 5 says POP within range, completion after November 17th, 2017. One of the requirements for the contracts that you provide is they need to have been performed within the last 5 years from the date of solicitation issuance, which would be, which was, I think, 16th of November 2022. 5 years before that would be November 17th, 2017. So all your contracts that you're going to use must be after that. And when checking our clients' contracts, the one they had supplied here didn't abide to this. So they can't use this project, and it gets a red color, meaning that this project must be changed. Let me see if there are others. This one, there are some, it's orange, meaning that the POP was not highlighted and annotated, so we say missing, and the number of FTEs was not highlighted and annotated. These need to be highlighted and annotated because you're getting points for FTEs, and you want to make sure that they're shown and the reviewers are going to look at them. So you can see that this checklist tells us what to check for, tells the client what to correct, and when we check again their job, we know what to look for again. So I wanted to show you this so that you can understand the importance of these checklists, these audit checklists in the process of preparation of the proposal. So let us now continue on. Let's see. Okay, slides. So how we can help you? We provide free consultations, so feel free to request a time, and we can always provide you free consultation on the project, on if you're doing a proposal yourself, we can help you, whatever. Other than free consultation during the next 2 months, we have 2 different tracks of service that we provide. We provide full proposal development. I'm assuming that most companies who are participating in this webinar, because the due date was postponed for 2 months, have already developed their proposal. If not, we can help you. But essentially, I think right now is the time for reviewing and auditing. But if you want full proposal development, we obviously do it. So we go through scoring assessment, optimization, then full proposal assembly, and then full and multiple compliance checks. For those companies who have done their proposal and want a third company to come in and check and review and audit their work, we have this service. We do 2 rounds of compliance checks in form and in content. And I think I showed you the audit checklist that we use. And we also work on score optimization. So we check your contract document to see if possibly we can increase it or not. So that's the service we provide to most companies at this stage that they have prepared their proposal. We can actually review and audit their system to make sure that they're compliant and they have maximized their score. So these are the services we essentially provide. This slide has our contact info, my contact info, Advent. If you have any technical questions, you can email me or call. Or Maron Freedy, my colleague for sales, if you want us to help you with the audit system, with review, you can always communicate with Maron through email or call him, and we can be helpful to you. And at this point, we can now start the Q&A session. Muge, can you please take over?
Thank you, Ab, for that very detailed and informative presentation. Let's see, going in, why don't I read some of questions we have. One question is, we are the prime and have 2 partners. Can we use the past performance of our partners for magnitude and complexity factors? The answer to that is you can only use the partners' contracts under the scale factor.
Right. And so for magnitude, you cannot use. The client has, whoever wrote the question, mixed magnitude and complexity. For complexity, you can use, but with the limitations that we mentioned. Minimum 2 must come from the prime. More than 2 you can use for complexity. But for magnitude, no, you cannot use at all, as Muge mentioned.
Thank you. How many projects can we use from our partners, and is there a limit? Right. So we cover that. If you want to elaborate a little bit more.
I think we covered it, as you said. Yes, there are 2 slides that we have, 28, I think.
And 31.
31, right, exactly. Mm-hmm. Those 2 slides show you the minimums that the prime can provide. And then other than that minimum, the rest can come from your partners.
The next question is, how old can our projects be? Anything after November 2017 is good and acceptable so far. I mean, right. It is because it's a live effort, yes. The next question is, our CPARs don't show the number of FTEs used. What documentation should we use for supporting, as a supporting documentation? Our response to that is use the technical capability validation form, which is attachment 3.
Right, exactly.
I have one more question. Do the past performances that we must provide under Volume 3 have to be a part of the contracts we provided under Volume 2, self-scoring technical capabilities? So the answer to that is no, not necessarily, but note that they must have been performed within the AOR that you are targeting, must supply 5 contracts for each AOR that you're targeting. So if you are targeting multiple AORs, you need to provide 5 contracts for each. And here, 1 at a minimum must be from the prime, and the rest can come from the subs. And I believe those are the only questions we have at this time.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Those are it. So with that, unless there are any other last minute things that you'd like to mention, Ab, I think we can conclude our webinar. We thank everybody for participating.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone, and hope that you will participate in our other webinars. We're going to have another webinar on Alliant, which is an IT project, next week, and then week after that, we're going to have webinar on Oasis Plus. So hope that you will join us there as well. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.